It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Ohio Northern Assistant Women's Lacrosse Coach, Coach Emily Boerger. How are you doing today?
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start college coaching?
Yeah, I coached lacrosse, believe it or not, for 2 years in college. It was actually 3 years. It was short and sweet, and I thought, man, I really dig this, and I don't want it to stop.
What was it like, obviously, going to college and playing lacrosse at Urban?
It was interesting. My sister and I, we got originally recruited for basketball, and we came in on basketball scholarship. Urbana is Division II, so we were able to do that. And in our second year of basketball, we had to pick up another sport to be full-blown Division II institution. We were in between an independence. And we got women's lacrosse, and it's in the spring. So my sister and I, we've always been pretty athletic. So we're like, let's double dip. Like, let's try this. And we tried it, and our career path kind of really took off for lacrosse. So we just stuck with it.
How was that like, obviously, getting to go with your sister and playing college athletics?
It was so cool. In my 10 years of coaching, I've obviously recruited twins, and you get a group of twins that are like, we're together always. And then you get a group of twins where it's like, we're our own individuals. And for my sister and I, we're pretty close. So there was never discussion that we were going to separate. So we were just going to be the dream team, and we're going to go to university together, and we're going to play together. And that was it.
What was that feeling like, getting to put on that Urban jersey?
It was cool. It was unique. Like, never in my life did I ever think I was going to play collegiate lacrosse. I'm from a non-traditional area. My high school never offered it. There was never a club in my area for lacrosse. So putting on the jersey was a little surreal. It's like, wow, like, no one really starts a brand new sport in college, right? You start the new sport and a youth, you build middle school, high school, you get it going. So it was cool.
How's that like, obviously, as you said, starting a new sport in college?
It was different. I remember the first time I bought a stick, and I learned to throw. Okay, so you have the head of the stick, and then you have the shaft. So we talk about 3 and 1 and 2 and 1, and you throw at 2 and 1, right? The middle of the shaft and the bottom. Okay, this is how I tried. 2 hands together at the bottom, like swinging it as if I was like fishing or something, right? It was so embarrassing. Good thing I was by myself. And then I had to learn. It was a lot to learn, but the skill sets were a lot to learn. The overall game, it is hand in hand with basketball, believe it or not. And so schemes, I picked up very quickly. I understood the IQ of the game. It was just the skill level that was a little tough.
What were some of your college accomplishments on your own?
For lacrosse?
Mm-hmm.
I think I graduated holding 4 records, which is pretty cool. My sister and I both became All-Americans. I think I have a record for goals in a game, goals in a season, something else. I don't know. I don't really remember. It was cool though, as I accomplished things, and it's like, what's next? So the goals just go in the archives and like, what's next? So I don't really remember, but I know I have 4 records.
Of course, are those 4 records still holding with your name, or have they been broken?
They're still holding, and they'll forever hold, because the University of Urbana is no longer a university. COVID came and happened, and they closed it. Braxton Miller, quarterback for Ohio State, his company actually bought the university. So they're going to make it in somewhat of a preparatory school, kind of like a JUCO, if you will. So I will forever hold the records.
Of course, how does that feel to know that you will forever hold those records?
I mean, it's cool. To me, records are meant to be broken. I don't live by them. They don't define me. But I guess in conversation, it would be cool to say, no one will ever beat my records, I guess.
How is it like getting into college coaching after your college playing time?
It was cool. You come up on graduation, and as an athlete, what do I do? Do I go to school to get my master's, right? Continue? Do I go into the workforce? I just always knew I could never have a life without sport. Now that didn't have to mean coaching. It was just, I had to be a part of sport. And in my senior year of college, a professor knew the head lacrosse coach at Ohio State very well. And so that started an internship. So we drive back and forth. Urbana to Ohio State was maybe like an hour and a half. And that's how I started meeting people at Ohio State, and then I graduated. Now what? I verbally committed to coach at a D2 in North Canton, Ohio. And then a year later, Alexis, the head coach at Ohio State, calls me on my phone, and I'm like, hello. And she's like, do you want to be on staff at Ohio State? And I'm thinking, you calling the right person? Because opportunities like that, phone calls like that, don't happen for someone like me coming from a really small community. So it was really cool.
Of course, what was that feeling like when you did get that call to become part of the coaching staff at Ohio State?
I'm on top of the world. You grew up being a Buckeye for life, right? Like huge football fans, right? We bleed scarlet and gray here in Ohio. And to have an Ohio State affiliate, call and say, hey, do you want to be on staff? It's like, wow, this is really cool. Now, I'm going to tell you now, I did not get called on staff because of my, X's and O's scheme. I was just a really, really hard worker, and I was super focused. And I got a really cool opportunity and learned a lot.
Of course, growing up as an Ohio State fan, how did that feel to get that call to join that staff?
Oh man, it was so cool. It was so cool. We had recruits on campus at every football home game. Duh, what's the best way to sell the school than an Ohio State football game? So we would start our tours in the morning, walk through campus, blah, 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 and then we'd make it into the shoe. And the recruits and the coaching staff got to stay on the sidelines for the whole hour that the football team warmed up. And then when the warm-ups were over and the game about to start, we sent the recruits off to their seats with their families. Thank you for coming, visiting, go Bucks. And then we would get in our own seats. And it never got old. Every home game for 2 years, sitting on the sidelines, watching the team warm up, never got old. It was so cool.
What were some of the accomplishments you achieved at Ohio State as the assistant coach for lacrosse?
Oh, I learned a lot. I got like the bump up. Like I first, year one, I took stats, in-game live stats. And at timeouts, we needed to know where we were in what stat category to, coach up. And I learned a lot then, a lot of detail orientation. And then in year two, I got still doing that, but then I kind of got moved offensively. So then with the offensive coach, I was able to hold up the play cards and call in plays. And I'm like, wow, like this, this is so cool. Like I would have been totally cool being the stat girl, you know what I mean? And then I got like the bump up holding the card, and it was the coolest thing ever. I learned a lot.
As an assistant at Ohio State, what was a typical game day look like for you?
Let's go with the Saturday. Saturday, our game probably were at noon or at 1, And so in the morning, we would always eat breakfast at the Blackwell, which is a hotel right on campus. It would always be catered. So we'd go in, have breakfast, eat. They had these amazing mini waffles that were so fluffy. Oh my gosh. And then I'll never forget, we always had 2 chefs that did the homemade omelet station. And so we'd eat all these things. The girls would go back to the locker room, pump the music, get dressed, casually get ready. And for us, we had to make sure the pregame snacks and stuff were in the locker room set to go. At halftime, we did like little energy cubes for them. That was set up, making sure I had everything appropriately in my book bag. My stats were printed off, we had the play guards ready to go. And that was pretty much it, because, at Ohio State, it's such a huge university. You have a huge support staff, right? So we had a camera person, we had someone doing the scoreboard, we had all these other things. We had a game day manager to make sure we had lacrosse balls. Whereas fast forward 10 years at Ohio Northern, a lot of those tasks are now your own, right? So it wasn't much at Ohio State as it was maybe at other smaller institutions I've been a part of.
Of course, what was the transition like from going from being a college coach to a strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, so like I said, when I graduated, I knew I wanted to be a part of sport, and my undergrad was exercise science. And my sister and I have always been really athletic, always loved to lift and work out. So when I got on at Ohio State, one of my friends who graduated a couple of years before me at Urbana was a manager at a private sector, and it was just a couple blocks over from Ohio State. So I'd get to Ohio State at 7 in the morning, because we had the team from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. block. So no classes. We had practice. From practice, they'd go work out, whatever. Then they had the rest of their day to be students. So I would stay at Ohio State till about 2:33, and then I would drive over to the private sector, and I would have 2 strength classes a night, all high school athletes. And then, I would drive home around 8:30 at night and then repeat every day. And I loved it.
Of course, what was the transition like from going from Ohio State to Findlay?
So after Ohio State, I went to the University of Arizona for strength and conditioning internship. That was really cool. It was hot. I miss the color of grass, believe it or not. Everything's so beige there because, it's a desert. And I came back and I'm like, now what? What do I do? And my sister was at the University of Findlay getting her master's. She was the GA for the lacrosse program, and their full-time assistant had just left. She got a bump up to Mercer at small Division I in Georgia. And my sister called me and was like, hey, you want to get the band back together? We're looking for a full-time. And I was like, yeah. So, I moved back home from Arizona and then moved to the University of Findlay.
What was that experience like, as you said, getting the band back together and coaching with your sister?
It was cool. Nora is very assertive. Okay. And so, I got in, we had this big office. So the assistants shared a room together. And the head coach was kind of down the hall and around the corner. And it was cool. We always had like music going, it was pumping, and she showed me the recruit database, showed me how they did things, did things at Findlay. It was cool. We'd go on recruit trips together. It was very fun.
How was it like, obviously, leaving Findlay to go to Merrimack?
Merrimack, yeah. So the head coach at Findlay took the job at Merrimack. She's originally from Massachusetts. She wanted to get back home and asked me to come with her. So Nora went down, and that's the first time we split, really. Nora went down to North Carolina to coach, and I went to Boston, Massachusetts.
Of course, during that time when you split, what was it like, obviously, going back to your own ways of getting to coach by yourself?
Yeah, it was cool. Like Nora and I are really close, right, as twins, but we always had our own identity. You know what I mean? We're, still at the end of the day, 2 separate people, believe it or not. I think like some people think twins have like this like mental, it was cool. It was now just me and the head coach, right? It was no more Nora. So now you're communicating with the head coach of, hey, what do we got to do? How are we running this program? It was busy. The first 3 years, that I was there at Merrimack, it was very busy because we were kind of picking up the pieces of a broken program a little bit. So year 1, half a year 2, all about recruiting. That's all we did. And then, in year 3, it was so cool. We ended up winning the conference championship, which was awesome. Very quick success, which was super.
What was that feeling like, getting to win that conference championship in only 3 years?
Oh man, the girl, athletes are just kids, right? And the kids go to play collegiate lacrosse because they love the sport, right? And they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So for me, knowing I worked that hard and they worked that hard together, we were all committed. The crazy schedule that we had as coaches is the same crazy schedule they had, and both sides, we stayed committed and be connected. And it was just so cool to see just the excitement on their faces. No one would have thought this, and I think that's the best part of coaching is, you help these women accomplish goals, and we did it together, and it's something I'll never forget.
Of course, what was it like transitioning from Merrimack to go back to the Division One to Central Michigan?
It was cool. We ran Merrimack like a D1 program. We were D2 and then we transitioned to D1 at Merrimack. Through NCAA rules, D2 and D1 are really similar. I mean, we could do a lot of the same things together. There's not really any difference. Sarah Tisdale was a friend of mine, was the head coach at Central Michigan. Now she's taken over Eastern Michigan, and said, come on aboard, Emily. And so I went, loved it for a year. Beautiful campus, beautiful facilities for those girls at Central Michigan. And then COVID hit.
Of course, while working at Central Michigan, what was it like balancing at that same time working with the Switzerland national team with your sister?
Yeah, it was good. I got to Central Michigan in September, and then, in season in February, Nora became the head coach, and I never really had a plan to coach with her. She was just like, hey, I've taken over this national team now. Will you kind of just help me, keep the pieces together and kind of get this going? And I said, absolutely. And so, it wasn't as hard as you think. You just schedule it. So, we asked what Nora's schedule was. We asked what my schedule was. Once I was back in the office at Central Michigan, I was able to do, Skype videos. We always did around 2 p.m, because by that time it's evening time in Switzerland. And we just did a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of film with the girls. It all worked out.
How is that like, obviously, getting to work with the national team while balancing being a college coach?
It was cool. We had coaches over there in Switzerland. So, we did a lot of Zoom calls as a coaching staff, Nora and I, and the coaches over there. And we'd always make a practice plan. And then we'd go over the practice plan with the coaches to ensure, they know the drills, what we're talking about, make sure we want to accomplish those goals. And then they would go through the practice, and then they would come back and communicate with us. How was the practice? What we think about this? What we thought about that? Is this like too much for them? Was this too little? A lot of communication.
Of course, during your time with the Switzerland national team, what are some of the things that you learned coaching the professionals that you took with you to coach college athletes?
Yeah, it's different, right? Like it's different. It's a little bit, at college, they want to be there, but we're also paying you to be there, right? Whereas the Swiss national team, it's all volunteer. So it's women who are much older, youngest person, might be 25 years old, whereas collegiately, your youngest is like, 17, 18 years old. And so it's a little bit of a different mindset. They're older women, right? Who are so passionate that they want to play for their country. And I think it's the communication piece, talking to one person a certain way is not going to work to the next, right? So you have to, as a coach, be able to adapt and be able to communicate. It was awesome. It was a super cool experience, and I'm super happy I did it.
How's it like coming back to the Ohio area and getting to coach now with the Ohio Northern?
So cool. When I was at Central Michigan, COVID hit, and I'm sitting there like, what am I doing? I'm out in the middle of nowhere, right? No one in the world knew how we were going to get past COVID. We didn't know how long it was going to last, and by that point I was away from home for 4.5 years. So it's like, maybe it's time to come home. So moved home, rented for a year, and then bought a house, actually in my hometown, which is kind of like, cool. I haven't coached in Ohio for a while. So being able to come home and coach back home was cool. I've never coached D3 before. I tried it, loved it. More of a personal life, be at the D3 level. Beth, the head coach there at Ohio Northern, she's a great person. She's awesome. My sister and I actually played against her when we were at Urbana back in college, and we kind of stayed connected. And she always was reaching out from time to time. Hey, I see you're here. Hey, I see you're there. Congrats. She's actually a Maryland kid, but she's been living in Ohio for quite some time coaching now. And she started the program at Ohio Northern. This past season was her 7th season there. And so she shot me a text, and she saw me through social media, like, hey, I saw you move back home. Like, welcome back. I'm looking for an assistant. If you know of anyone, let me know. And I'm thinking, what about me? And she was like, no way. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I've never coached D3 before. Let's do it. So we linked up.
Of course, what was that feeling like joining the Ohio Northern after obviously you said that coach saw you and knew you very well?
Yes, yeah, she's like, "Yeah, come up for a visit," and I'm like, "Okay," and I'm from Ohio, but I've never been to Ohio Northern. I didn't know where it was at, and I drove up, and it's such a beautiful campus. I'm pleasantly surprised. It's so pretty. The athletic facilities are so nice. They have 2 turf fields, which is amazing to coaches when it comes to fall and spring scheduling for facilities. It was cool. Everybody, there's coaches that's been there forever, and it was such a home feeling. And so I was like, "Yes, sign me up."
How did obviously your time with the Switzerland national team help you to get the job at Ohio Northern?
It just adds to the experience, and it adds to being versatile. If I've done this and this and this and this, and I've always had a goal with that in my life, because I don't want to be just mainstream. I don't want to be just one thing. I want to have a life where I can dabble, and it just makes you more versatile, I think. And the experience is kind of like put you on the map. So it was cool. That's actually been thinking about getting into maybe coaching internationally. And now I have that advice for her, right? And to say, well, these are my experiences. This is what I thought it was like. If my experiences can help the next person, I'm all for it.
Of course, what are some of the things that you've accomplished so far at Ohio Northern?
We kind of rejuvenated the recruit database, kind of changed and updated some things of how we were recruiting. The coolest thing, I'll tell you, I can't tell you what we put in it, but we've created these recruit boxes, and they're logoed and labeled. And so when we want to offer a recruit, we have these boxes, and it opens up like a cake box. And then boom, you see our logo right there. And then there's some things in there that I can't tell you. But that was really cool because anyone can email a recruit, love you to come, go Polar Bears. But it's next level when you send them a box all logoed out with some things inside, and they open it. And I think it's that extra push of we love you, we want you to be with us at Ohio Northern. Coaching wise, I think offensively, we did a pretty good job this year. We put in 6 or 7 plays this year, which was more than what they've been accustomed to, which was great. I don't really know stats offhand. I know that we shot on goal a pretty high percentage. We were almost at 50%, which is fabulous. I think we ended the year 47, 48%. So it's a really, really cool accomplishment for them.
Who are some of the teams that you face in your conference each week?
Capitals in our conference, Otterbein, John Carroll, Mount Union, Muskingum, us. I'm doing a good job, right? Marietta. It's cool because every institution I've been to, away games, you're going out of state somewhere. And this is the first time in my career that I traveled away, but I was still in the same state. The whole schedule, which Ohio is a pretty big state, right? So like when we were back in Boston, you drive 3 hours and you're on Long Island, and here you drive 3 hours, you're still in Ohio. So that was kind of cool. I'm away, but I'm still in the same state.
Of course, how is that like obviously playing in the same state of Ohio, but playing away games?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it's still experiences, right? I'm from Ohio, but I haven't been everywhere in Ohio. Like I've never been to Marietta, and now I was able to go to Marietta because our away game was at Marietta this year. It was fun.
Of course, what does a typical game day look like for you?
Okay, so like a home game. The girls would go do breakfast in the morning still together as a team. Sometimes the coaching staff would join, sometimes we wouldn't. At Ohio Northern, I would get there. I would go up in the press box, turn on the scoreboards, the shot clocks. We'd get the music going and pump it. Girls would come out. We had like deputies on our team that controlled little team members to help field setup. So we got the cones out, the pylons, the benches, et cetera, et cetera. We had a full-time athletic trainer on our team. She would get the water going, making sure the girls are going in and getting treatment, pre and post game. Got to get the walkie-talkies. One walkie-talkie stay with us and one up at the press box. Just things like that.
How's it like obviously as an assistant coach seeing those prospective student athletes when they come on the visits fall in love with Ohio Northern?
Yeah, it's good, in coaching, a lot of people think my full-time job is just X's and O's, right? I wish. Uh, the Ohio State coach told me forever ago, and it's always stuck with me. We are 90% administrators and we're 10% coaches. Because think about it, in a day, let's say in an 8 to 10 hour day, you only see the kids 2 hours. That's it. So what else are you doing? And it's all administrative work, right? And a big part of that administrative work is recruiting, because if you don't have recruits, you don't have a program. And so being able to hit recruiting goals feels good. We had a recruiting goal of 7 to 10 for the class that's going to be coming in the fall, and we hit 10. And it just helps. It helps Ohio Northern, right, as an enrollment standpoint. It helps us as a program enrollment standpoint. And the outreach, you just got to keep getting the name out there. I think for a long time, Beth is recruiting in Ohio. In the past couple of years now, we're really expanding. We had a kid from Denver come visit us this year. We had a kid from California come visit us this year, a couple kids down south. So I think we're moving in the right direction here.
Of course, what advice would you give those prospective student athletes that are in high school looking to play college lacrosse?
Yeah, you got to get your name out there. What does that mean? Play a club financially. If it's not there to play club, totally cool. Email, those collegiate coaches, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. High school, this is who I play for. If I play club, this is who I play for. These are my schedules. These are the tournaments I'm going to be at. Please come watch me play. And that's kind of how it starts. It plants the seed, right? So we have that first email interaction. And then I ask the kids to, fill out a recruit questionnaire. It puts them in our database. For me, I live in the database. It pings them. It keeps me up to date with them. So I can always find them. I don't lose them. And that builds a relationship. And so once we see them, we contact with them. Now we get them on campus for a visit. And really, once we get them on campus, I think Ohio Northern sells itself.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to go play for the national team, whether it's U.S. or even Switzerland national team?
Do it. Absolutely do it. Why not? I think that's the best question. Why not? We all have our own individual goals. A lot of people want to travel. Why not travel while playing for a national team? It's such a cool opportunity. You're potentially going to see things and travel to places that maybe you never would, right, if you didn't do this. So we only live once. Life is all about experiences, so go out.
What advice would you give those college coaches looking to get started?
Yeah, reach out. We're always getting emails from organizations or programs. We're looking. So, find those programs and reach out. Any other collegiate colleagues that you know of that's coached internationally, reach out to them. Hey, what are your experiences? What are your thoughts? What's the process? I'm sure every country, the process is a little different of how to get in. Life's all about networking, right? It's just who you know. So just get connected.
What advice would you give those college coaches looking to do the same thing that you did and work for a national team?
I think they should do it as well. It was fun. It was a cool experience. You learn different cultures. You learn different people. You get perspective of life. My sister, when she goes over there and coaches, she takes pictures and puts it in our family group. And it's just amazing the things that she sees. And some of her pictures she's brought home and framed in our house. And it's just like, man, Nora, such a cool experience. You never forget this for the rest of your life. And what's it to her? She goes for 2 weeks in the summer. She goes for 2 weeks in December. That's like her role. And then, and then they came here, right, for the World Games. There's some duties, some administrative duties, but it's well worth it. If you're an organized person, it's well worth it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Ohio Northern lacrosse program at?
What was that?
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Ohio Northern lacrosse program?
Oh, great. You can find me on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter at just Emily Boerger. Ohio Northern, we have ONUW lacrosse for our Instagram page. Come follow us. Sometimes I post, sometimes Beth posts, sometimes our team takes over the Instagram. Yeah.
Thank you again, Coach Emily Boerger, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Ohio Northern.
Thank you so much. You're the man with the plan.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Emily Boerger, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.